In second generation form, Audi's RS5 moves from V8 to bi-turbo V6 power as part of a significantly more sophisticated package that edges this Ingolstadt contender closer to the standards being set by top BMW and Mercedes rivals. The key RS5 advantage remains in its provision of four-wheel drive, but there are also now plenty of other reasons why you might choose one over an M4 or a C63. In short, it's now a far more credible contender.
On the move, there's absolutely no doubting that the engine switch has delivered significantly more speed this time around. Forget the fact that the 450 PS total power output is pretty much the same as that delivered by the old V8. The stat that really matters here is pulling power, and those twin turbos deliver far more of it. To be specific, the torque figure rises 170 newton meters to 600 newton meters, which equates to an astonishing 44% power to weight ratio improvement. It's enough to make this RS5 feel like a bona fide junior supercar. 62 miles an hour from rest takes just 3.9 seconds, and the top speed can be as high as 174 miles an hour. True, the engine's overall fireworks aren't as engaging as they were with that old V8, but with the optional RS Sport exhaust fitted, this model's 2.9-litre TFSI V6 has its own theatrical fizz, and you're really warm to it after you've lived with it for a bit. Plus, as expected, it's considerably more efficient than the old unit, managing 32.5 mpg on the combined cycle and 197 grams per kilometre of CO2. This RS5 also tackles the turns more effectively this time around. Part of this is down to the redeveloped Quattro system, which usually directs 60% of torque to the back wheels, but if conditions demand, it can send up to 85% of power to the back, or if necessary, as much as 70% to the front. This setup has been designed to work with a torque vectoring system that applies minimal brake interventions to the wheels on the inside of any given curve before they start to spin, thus maximising traction and making handling more precise, agile and stable. Also playing its part here is the standard fit sport differential, which at speed through tight corners can constantly vary the amount of torque that's distributed to each of the rear wheels. As usual with Audi, there's a drive select driving mode system that enables you to tweak the throttle response, the stability control thresholds and the impact of that sport differential system. It'll also alter the suspension feel if you've paid extra for adaptive damping. Plus, of course, the drive select settings alter the response of the transmission, and that's an 8-speed Tiptronic auto paddle shift setup. This RS-branded A5 Coupe isn't quite as stylistically subtle as its lesser S5 stablemate, nor would you want it to be. Appropriately enough, aesthetic inspiration came from a competition model, Audi's 90 Quattro IMSA GTO Racer, hence the blistered wheel arches, the lacerated air intakes and the huge oval exhaust pipes. It's certainly a slightly larger car than its predecessor, thank the new MLB Evo platform for a 74mm increase in length, and the more purposeful stance is a touch lower too. Time to open the long, wide driver's door and take a seat inside. As for the elements that set this RS5 model apart, well, of course, the flat-bottomed RS Sport leather steering wheel with contrast stitching is bespoke, so are the stainless steel pedals, and these lovely Napa leather-trimmed, honeycomb-stitched, winged RS Supersport seats. Otherwise, apart from the leather-fashioned door armrests and knee pads, the ambiance here is exactly as it would be in any plushly specified A5 model. We really like the seats though, anatomically shaped and perfectly positioned in front of this steering wheel, through which you view the all-digital Audi virtual cockpit. Now, you may be familiar with this setup from some of the brand's other models. Here it's standard, a 12.3-inch LCD colour monitor that replaces the usual instrument binnacle dials with a layout that's fully digital and customisable, using smart 3D graphics and highly detailed effects. Anything the virtual cockpit setup can't tell you will almost certainly be covered by the slimline MMI infotainment display that really dominates the top of this dashboard. Now, appropriately, this flagship model includes Audi's top MMI Navigation Plus with MMI Touch package, and it has a 8.3-inch monitor featuring crisp 3D maps and responsive NVIDIA graphics. Right, let's take a seat in the rear. Buyers in search of a two-door design tend to transport adults in the back very infrequently, but when the need does arise, this RS5 coupe can improve a little on the claustrophobic quarters provided by some of its closest rivals. Finally, let's take a look in the boot. Now, this trunk area has gained 10 litres in size with this second generation model's longer design, and it's now the largest in the segment at 465 litres. This is, according to Audi, an athlete in a tailor-made suit. Well, if that's the case, then, as others have pointed out, the sprinter in question must surely be Usain Bolt. Critics may see its approach as overly clinical, but that's a subjective thing. The hard facts are that when it comes to rival cars, a BMW M4 and a Mercedes AMG C63 coupe compromise you every time it rains. And one of those wild, super four-wheel drive hot hatches compromise you every time your boss checks out your space in the company car park and tells you to grow up. Of course, if you wanted to follow his lead and get completely sensible, then you'd have to admit that an Audi S5 would make more sense on paper. But the best decisions aren't always made on paper. Here's a car with a brand image built on more tactile things, and one that, 4 decades on from that original Quattro, continues Ingolstadt's performance heritage.